everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield and I'm a professional dancer, professional dance choreographer, and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States, and we're taking a look at Kiss of Life's Sugarcoat Natty solo dance practice. So I'm actually making this intro a little out of order. I've already done the analysis, but I needed to make a correction before you took a look at the analysis. So at the time, whenever I originally recorded it, I thought Natty was the youngest member. I thought she was born in 2005, but it's actually her fellow teammate, Hanul. So do forgive me for some of my notes regarding that. It's all complimentary, but I do make some notes that are based off of age, because whenever, I think around the time that this came out, she would have been 18. I believe Hanul is 18, and Natty, I'm believing actually she's probably around 20 to 21 at the time that this came out. So I think my feedback would have been a little refined had I have gotten the right member right, but the intention is still the same if she was at that age. So I wanted to kind of keep that in mind before you guys took a watch and been like, you're wrong. You're right, I am. So do forgive me for that. I still hope you enjoy it. It was a really great analysis and very enjoyed watching it, and so I hope you enjoy it too. So go ahead and check it out. It's got an old school vibe about it. It really does. Here we go. Let's see what we're doing. I like the groove of that. That was fun. Just a little baby spacing on stage right. Nice way. Okay, with a little reject. I am honestly, with her top, I'm surprised at the amount of confidence she has in those clear straps. I never trust clear straps, but also I'm hanging out in a particular size that clear straps are decoration. You need some actual load for me. But I need to say this. I'm very appreciative of the fact that for this video, the boys did not touch her not one time. Very thankful for that, because remember, yes, is she technically an adult? Yes. Is she a very baby adult? Yes, just because you turn 18 magically one day does not mean all of your problems are solved. She's still very much in that societal transition phase, and how idols grow up are very different than those of regular upbringing, if that makes sense. The training, the load, the mental load is very different. I'm not saying that it's better or worse, I'm just saying it's different. And so there hasn't been enough studies done, personally, on the psychology of the societal type of what happens societally or just experimentally or exploration wise and behaviorally of individuals who go through a trainee kind of program in comparison to just other individuals, because there's a lot of case studies out there, not really for the late teens and early adulthood. A lot of it's in children and pre-adolescent and adolescent, and so you're not really able to see a lot of these types of patterns or like how people think or choices that are made. And all that to say, I'm very appreciative of the fact that we don't have a Minx situation here. If you know Minx, they were that was before Dreamcatcher, and their music video I was not a fan of because they had to, you know, when they were a little too young to be, you know, doing some stuff with some guys, and I'm not very much a fan of that. And so I'm very appreciative that there was an appropriate amount of space between them, and there wasn't anything that happened that would make me go, maybe we need to talk about that. I'm actually very thankful that is not quite the case. So how she's sitting through this is actually very nice. I like her movement quality a lot. How she allows the groove of her lower half to kind of cause whatever reverberation, not really reverb, but how she allows her upper body to just kind of hang out and do whatever reactionary to what's happening with the lower half of the body. Very much a fan of that. She comes up, switching through, doom, 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 nice little head accent, bringing it through, little head once more. Diving in just very subtly though, just by establishing who she is. Great performance. Switching. She does a good job making the movement or her mannerisms not feel choreographed. Does that make sense? And I think that when the guys come in, normally females tend to not appear as powerful, but a lot of that has to do with biology, not because of women are incapable of dancing as big as men. No, it's not quite the case. It's more so like based on the types of, it just, sometimes there's certain styles that men, because you have to think about like the cultural upbringing of the style too, you know, like with Vogue and whacking, it did, like whacking started with punking, which is male, Vogue male, with honestly, with most styles, I mean, when you think about it, we're male dominated. So, I mean, I feel it's just very interesting. All that to say, like, I'm trying to, it's just interesting to try to word it, because I've never really worded it in a way that to kind of describe this. Like, she holds it down very well. She does. And normally you can tell that singers especially have a more muted perspective, especially female singers, because they have to make sure that they're stable vocally. But for here, this really does feel like a dance, which is cool, you know. But I like her mannerisms once again here, swinging it through. Love that kickball change, diving it back down, slowly coming up. Love with the tap. Now notice our guy is coming in. Now this will swing one of two ways. For me, I was like, okay, what's gonna happen? Is she gonna be doing some partner work with them, or is she going to be vibing out with them? And we chose the latter, which I'm very happy for, because you get a really nice vibe across. Now, I would say out of my two guys, my dancer right here tends to come across more full and more crisp in his movement. He takes a more laid back approach, and she actually caters more towards this individual, which honestly kind of balances out well. You can tell with some of her movement, at least with her arms, she may not be using her back as much as I think could have been as helpful for her. I do say this a lot with just individuals in general, but specifically for a lot of female artists, because it's not talked about as much, which is why I bring it up a lot more than probably a typical individual would. It's because I say it in my day-to-day a lot whenever I teach students. They don't quite use their back as much as they need to in order to have that kind of strength behind some of their movements and execution. That would be with whacking, ballet, jazz, just anything that requires you to use your arm. Using your lats is going to save you a lot of energy. But I like the choice where everybody makes it very conversational. I do like the choice of the guys wearing sunglasses and she's the only one not. It helps her naturally stand out a little bit more. And they're in all black. She's not wearing all black, but I like some of her choices. She takes a more feminine approach to it. They take a very neutral approach or a masculine approach. Part of that stems from they do more of a rock and a bounce and foundation for her. She really caters and sits in the hips, and she uses the arch of her back to really help with some of the grooves and bringing them into the body. And that's how you can see the difference. Are both fine. Now, that move right there, some people may call it a jerk. It is not called a jerk, and I understand why you may think it's called that. It is called the reject. The jerk is actually this move right here. You're a jerk. That song, it says you're a jerk, but they were doing the reject during whenever that was being said of you're a jerk. But there is a song called Teach Me How to Jerk around the time that Teach Me How to Dougie came out. And so that's just a little tidbit of information for you. If you didn't know the difference, there is a difference. The jerk is this bad boy up here. It's a whole vibe and a half in and of itself, but that is called the reject if you need to know. Switching through, I like that. Yep, and notice from there, what do the guys do here? They use the knee and she moves her hip. That's another instance for the guys. Knee. For her, she uses the hip. That's how you can tell they're making different concessions, because you have to think about what they're wearing too. For her, she's not wearing like a really baggy jacket that's helping with a lot of the extra fabric or the extra rock or leverage of the range of the space. Like your fabric or what you're wearing matters in how you come across. So she's doing what she's doing movement wise that actually matches the aesthetic of her outfit a lot more. Switching, kicking it through. That honestly felt a little bit like a Harlem. It's not really a Harlem at all, but it just sometimes you see like a little Harlem shake. There's so many variants to it, but like your typical one would be like the shoulders with the switch. You see it more isolated in a lot of choreography in the K-pop realm, but I always like it. With a track like this, if you are gonna do it, which I'm not saying they are technically doing it, but if they were to do it, I would want to see it in its foundational form of the typical basic Harlem, which is cool. Diving through, notice for them, they make it neutral. She dives down, keeps one of the legs straight, uses her lower back. Now that part is overrated. It honestly feels a little bit like a gangsta walk in format, but not quite, because they do more like a heel rotation and they switch it up. So honestly, it may be a completely different move entirely, but in my head, I'm thinking gangsta walk because I a lot of times I refresh on a lot of movement, and gangsta walk is fresher on my mind than that move is. So forgive me for that. Kick step touch, I really like that with a Really love the energy here. Very old school in some of the movement quality, which I like. I like the choice that she's dropped down a little bit lower. The guys are higher. They frame her really well. She comes right back up. Now, I would say my one little note, this is just more like a suggestion, not really a they need to change this. Something if you wanted to make it feel a little bit more dynamic is to add more dynamics to it. More ripples, maybe an add-on perchance, because right now it does look like we are doing choreography. Then we move to a new spot, we do choreography. If that's what they wanted to do, that's fine. But if they wanted it to kind of be more captivating in the full picture and not just in content, that would be something I would suggest, is to have the guys do a sense of add-on or something to where, yes, she gets to have her moment, but her doing choreo, them adding on, or them having a moment and her being still, or levels, more levels represented, things like that, I think would be really helpful. Bringing it through. And I like that they move. She goes secondly, and I like that choice as well. Now, once again, we are back to unison. I do like, though, that we do see more like a masculine perspective, like a laid back, chill groove perspective. She has more like a feminine, how she's carrying the energy perspective. So femme mask, like you're seeing both here, and both work very well. Am I putting them in a particular am I looking at it from not a narrow-minded perspective, but am I looking at it and putting it in boxes? No. You see overlap in both. It's not my point. My point is that they are holding their postures and their carriages differently and how they're doing the grooves and the movements, and that's why it looks subtly different, but they're doing the movement right. Does that make sense? So noticing here, I really like this groove because and we're able to appreciate it because notice that the actual, like how they're bringing it up is around the same time. That's range, and you want to be very mindful of range, not just your movements, but how you're getting your movements from point A to point B. Talk about this almost every single time because range is the trickiest thing to get right. It always is, and people forget that it's a thing. It's just never talked about, which is why I talk about it a lot. This part here, I think it feels, my dancer, it does feel a bit like some of his movement can be a bit restrictive in how he's choosing to throw the arms. That's more probably his movement quality that we're seeing. But in contrast or in comparison to who he's mirroring, that would be something that I would have, you know, between the two guys, I probably would have just made them do it and kind of make sure that some of the movement was at least on the same page for some of the like the extension of the rotation of an arm, because that affects range in unison choreography. But you can also go off of your feature, and if your feature does it a particular way, as a dancer, I would feel that a dancer, it makes concessions to help take responsibility for parts of the music that the feature needs to hold and justify other sections. Like your part is to create more fullness in what's not being hit by your singer. So that would be my in general note. I like the level choice here. Really great. They slide through. Great energy, bringing it through. Notice it's more isolated on this side and his is more full. That would have been something to keep a note, but notice with your feature. She comes in. She isolates it a little bit more too, so that would be something of if they wanted to create more fullness, that they both would need to commit to that, and then she would feel like an outlier in a decent way. But if all of them are going to take an isolated approach, then he would need to be on the same page because he's somebody else he has to reference as well. So that would just be my little note there. Sliding it through. Now right there, back into the choreography, back to the reject. It is a right, left, right, right groove, which I really like, and they're switching it up to the other side. They have more individualized upper body, but notice the lower half is pretty much the same. Very much like that choice. I like that choice, which is nice. D, 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 D. Notice she has like, and they have just like a suave neutral perspective. I think that's totally fine. Head nods look cool. I like that part right there. Ding, 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 ding. Build it up really nice. She has to have her own vibe. Yep, diving back in. Very similar to how she set herself up in the very beginning. Nice little fingerprint, or that could just be her neutral way of moving and expressing. Not quite having a choreographic intention there, just how she vibes is kind of what just came across, which is cool. Guys come back on. They go back in, and I love the wave. Notice it starts down. They're placing their weight in the back foot, allowing the energy to travel up and finish up near the top. I believe it stops at the head. And she has her hand out, so it looks like she's controlling them a little bit that way. Little head nods there at DT. Notice the syncopation of it and the intricacy of the isolation. Ding, ding. I wouldn't call it intricate. I would say the syncopation is a little bit tricky to catch if you're not mindful of it. And it's nice to have a mirror do it too, so it's easier to see it because it's so small. And having them drop down, moving to the back. I like the choice of making this a diagonal. World's best in class. And then they groove over to the side, and she goes the opposite way technically, but because she's facing the front, it looks like they're going the same way. I like that. It frames her really well. Stopping through, here we go. And choreo again. Now, I do like the choice of the guys having a little peekaboo moment with the shoulders. That was really fun, definitely enjoyable. It does feel just more suave by them doing that. It elevates it just a little bit. She's kind of doing her own thing. They're doing choreo, which is nice, and it's important for them to be on the same page, so she's able to have her moment, and they're able to take responsibility for the other facets of the track without becoming a distraction by not being on the same page with each other, if that kind of makes sense. Diving in. I think that felt like a little bit of was that a little sneeze? No, it was a little chug, which a lot of times you see people add a little sneeze energy to, and right there they just kind of did little throws. That does remind me, I think it was in 17's Hot, they do something like that to transition before the end of their course. So I think I noted that, and I physically done that. This one just feels a little bit more chill, obviously because the BPM and the groove of it is a little bit slower, just like I said, with the tempo. And so it feels and it registers a little bit differently than what you would see in, let's say, a BPM like Hot. So, but I like this right here, which is cool. Nice little kick right there. Chuggy chug. Yep. Da da da. She has a really nice tone here too. Yeah, my note there for her, as I do feel like with this groove, they do the same legs. It does feel like here. Notice that she kind of tailors it over to the corner, so my note would have been to try to get it to aim more towards the front. But notice, I think part of it stems from she's choosing to take the hips and press them over to the side. They're keeping it more diagonal, both of them, and that's why the hand tailors to that as well. So notice hers looks a bit more overshot. It's because she's working more in opposition in comparison to together. So that would be my note of clarification. If they ever work together, who knows if that's really the case. You never really know with these if she's worked with them or not until the day of. Don't quite know, but notice with this movement here, that would just have been something to refine and make sure everybody was on the same page on, because that would have looked really clean if everybody was doing the same arms. And they're keeping it more in essence to the elbow and the hand, and she's using her shoulder, and that does change how it comes across. Taking through, and I liked how she just threw the arms up, they actually jumped it. That was a nice little moment. Yep. Switching through, honestly, the energy of this is really nice. It's just a little baby spacing thing right here. It's so small, it's barely even a thing. It's still really nice to look at though. Yep, and they go dee-dee, they pull away, she drops the hands, they walk away, she steps in the back, and she starts walking, or she reestablishes because there's nowhere to walk. That was really enjoyable, it was tasteful, and I think it was very appropriate for her. And I'm very much a fan of that. So this has been great, and I do feel like I think there's like one more soloist at this point that I'm watching. We'll see though, but yeah, this is really cool. I'm excited. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch. If you want to see more Kiss of Life or the full group analysis of their dance practices, I've been doing that as a mini marathon for Patreon, and so Patreon is where all of it is going to be accessible to, even if you don't see all of it here on YouTube. I am always excited to take a look at new groups, and this one is of no difference, as well as meet new fans and figure out some great discussions to talk about in the comments as well. I do know with these types of routines, there's always something interesting, something insight-wise that I always tend to learn something new about from the fan base, and I'm always receptive and open to that, and it helps me be able to tailor my feedback for future reactions. So I very much appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. Once again, it always means a lot, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye!